Before we dive into the chaos, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next adventure. The diplomatic screening form contained exactly one question, and somehow, humanity had already failed it. Fexlerantix sat at the curved observation desk, his slender fingers tapping anxiously against his datapad. Across from him, a Ballard leaned back in his chair with an easy confidence that made aliens uneasy. Nearby, Kintherval hovered in place, her translucent wings catching the overhead lights as she reviewed what should have been a routine admissions protocol. "This section is quite simple," Fexlerantix said in the careful tone of someone expecting a simple answer. "We only require documentation of major planetary conflicts from your recorded history. Standard procedure for all prospective members." He slid the display across the table. The question glowed in universal standard. "Please list all planetary-scale military conflicts in your recorded history." Ballard looked at the screen, then at Fexlerantix, then back at the screen. He asked 5 words that would permanently reshape alien understanding of humanity. "Which year?" Kintherval's wings froze mid-flutter. She made a sharp clicking sound normally reserved for discovering termites in one's nest. "Excuse me. Which year would you like me to start with?" Ballard repeated, pulling out his tablet. "That will significantly affect the length of the list." Fexlerantix's translator flickered, as if hoping it had malfunctioned. "The question refers to conflicts across your entire recorded history," he said carefully. "Surely you mean which region?" "No," Ballard replied, already scrolling. "Which year? Ancient history? Medieval? Early modern? 20th century? Contemporary?" The numbers changed dramatically. Numbers. Skilixner chose that exact moment to enter the chamber, his scales reflecting mild curiosity. How many conflicts could one planet possibly accumulate? Wilson, who had been quietly reviewing notes in the corner, looked up with the expression of a man about to ruin everyone's afternoon. "That depends," he said. "Are we counting civil wars, or only international ones?" The silence that followed felt heavy. "Civil wars." Kintherval's voice rose an octave. "You fight yourselves?" "Oh, constantly," Ballard said cheerfully. "Let's keep it simple. Wilson, bring up the 20th century." Wilson tapped his tablet. Then again. His screen began filling with entries. Then more. Then more. The list kept growing. Fexlerantix's ocular membranes blinked rapidly, an unmistakable sign of cognitive overload. "This cannot be correct," he said slowly. "Your translator must be duplicating entries." "Actually," Wilson replied, "these are just the major conflicts. We haven't added border skirmishes, colonial uprisings, or undeclared wars yet." Undeclared wars. Skilixner's scales shifted to alarm. "How can a war be undeclared?" "You simply don't call it a war," Ballard explained. "Sometimes it's politically inconvenient." The alien expressions made it clear they did not, in fact, understand. Kintherval drifted closer to Wilson's display. Her compound eyes scanned the data. Her wings began vibrating at a distressed frequency. "This entry, the War of the Bucket. Please tell me this is a translation error." "No," Wilson said. "It lasted decades. Thousands died. Someone stole a bucket from a well, and tensions escalated." A bucket. It was technically about political rivalry between city-states, Ballard admitted. But yes, the bucket started it. Fexlerantix made a low grinding sound. "And this, the football war. You fought over a sporting event." "It was slightly more complicated," Ballard said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But yes, a match was involved. Lasted 4 days. 4 days is a war." Skilixner asked faintly. "Oh, that's nothing," Elise said, entering the chamber with her own datapad. "We've had wars that lasted less than an hour." 3 alien heads turned toward her in perfect synchronization. "The Anglo-Zanzibar War," she continued, taking a seat. 38 minutes. Naval bombardment included. Kintherval's wings stopped completely. "And on the opposite end," Ballard added helpfully, "the 100 Years' War lasted 116 years. "Of course it did," Fexlerantix muttered, watching his faith in galactic standardization collapse in real time. Wilson glanced up. Should I mention the Emu War? Please don't, Ballard said quickly. What is an Emu War? Skilixner asked, already regretting it. Australia deployed military forces against large flightless birds, Wilson explained. The birds won. The silence that followed was absolute. Fexlerantix slowly lowered his head onto the desk. Kintherval began emitting a high, steady hum. Skilixner's scales cycled through 6 unstable colors. Let me confirm, Fexlerantix said, his voice muffled against the surface. Your species achieved atomic energy, space travel, and quantum computing, and lost a military engagement to birds. Technically, Ballard said gently, the emus remain undefeated. Rowena walked in carrying her own stack of historical files. She took one look at the shaken aliens and smiled. Oh good, she said lightly. You've reached the fun part. Just wait until they hear about the wars we fought in space. All 3 aliens made sounds their species were never meant to produce. Kintherval had tried entering the data into the Galactic Archives 3 times. 3 times, the system returned an error that roughly translated to, "You must be joking." The archive format assumes 1 major conflict per species per century, she said, her wings trembling between frustration and existential dread. Your submission lists conflicts in quantities I cannot even pronounce in my language. Would you like us to slow down? Estella offered, sounding far too amused. That would require you to stop entirely, Skilorna muttered. His scales had settled into a flat gray, their equivalent of a stress migraine. Fexlerantix pulled up comparative statistics on his display. What he saw contradicted everything his xenoscience training had taught him. According to this analysis, he said slowly, some of your nations have existed in a state of active military conflict for over 90% of their recorded history. That sounds about right, Wilson replied, nodding as if they were discussing seasonal rainfall. How? The word came out as a hiss. How does a civilization function under constant warfare? Very efficiently, actually, Ballard answered. You'd be amazed how much infrastructure you can maintain while simultaneously bombing each other. Randall joined them, unrolling historical maps marked with color-coded conflict zones. He spread them across the table. The aliens watched as the entire planet lit up in overlapping shades of red across different eras. These only show territorial wars, Randall explained. We haven't even started on ideological conflicts. There's a difference. Kintherval asked faintly. Oh, absolutely. Territorial wars are about land. Ideological wars are about ideas. He paused. Those tend to get messy. Schuyler leaned closer to the maps, searching desperately for a pattern in the chaos. This region shows continuous conflict over several centuries, he said. Same land, same resources, likely similar populations. Why persist? Religion, Elise said. They fought over spiritual beliefs there for about 800 years. On and off. Kintherval asked weakly. Mostly on, Elise replied. Fexlerantix translator made a noise it had never produced before, somewhere between a wheeze and a dying modem. Your species kills each other over abstract disagreements about existence. When you say it like that, it sounds unreasonable, Wilson said. Because it is unreasonable. Look, we're not proud of it, Ballard added, though he didn't sound especially ashamed. You asked for our conflict history. We're being thorough. Rowena opened another file. The aliens visibly braced. Should we move on to the Cold War? Please define Cold War, Kintherval said carefully. I hope it refers to a conflict without violence. Well, not directly between the main powers, Rowena began. The aliens sighed in relief. They built enough nuclear weapons to destroy all complex life on the planet multiple times and aimed them at each other for 50 years. The relief vanished. You what? Skill Varix's scales flickered through the entire color spectrum like a malfunctioning display. Mutually assured destruction, Randall explained. If one side attacked, both would be annihilated. So neither attacked. That is insane, Fexlerantix said flatly. But effective, Wilson replied. It worked. How did this end without your world becoming radioactive? Kintherval demanded. One side ran out of money, Estella said with a shrug. The silence that followed marked the moment 3 alien minds gave up trying to understand human logic. During this Cold War period, Kintheravel said slowly, scanning the human timeline, there are records of dozens of other conflicts, regional wars, revolutions, interventions. How are these connected? Proxy wars, Ballard answered. Instead of fighting directly, the major powers supported opposing sides in other conflicts. So you created wars about your war without officially fighting your war? More or less. Skill Voryx began making a low grinding sound, their species' response to severe cognitive dissonance. I need clarification, he said. During this so-called Cold War, your planet experienced ongoing warfare in multiple regions at the same time? It was cold for the superpowers, Wilson explained. For everyone else, it was very hot. This is a nightmare, Fexlerantix murmured. A bureaucratic nightmare. We haven't even covered civil wars, Elise added casually. All 3 aliens stared at her. Pure, unfiltered horror crossed their faces. Civil wars, Kintheravel repeated hollowly. Conflicts within your own populations. Oh, those are usually the bloodiest, Randall said with alarming enthusiasm. Humanity's deadliest conflict was a civil war. There's nothing quite like fighting people who speak your language and share your homeland. How many civil wars has your planet experienced? Skill Voryx asked. Do you want the full list, Ballard said, or just the major ones? I want to go home, Skill Voryx whispered. Before you do, Rowena said, pulling up another file, we should mention that some of these conflicts are technically still ongoing. Frozen armistices, no formal peace treaties. Fexlerantix stared at the new data, then at the humans, then back at the data. You're telling me that, at this very moment, while we sit here conducting peaceful diplomatic negotiations, your planet still has unresolved military conflicts? Just a few, Ballard said. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. The alien's voice cracked. Your species is applying for membership in a galactic community while maintaining active hostilities on your own world. We're good at multitasking, Wilson said proudly, as if this were a strength instead of a warning sign. Kintheravel had gone completely still, her wings pressed flat against her back in a posture of total psychological surrender. Before we continue, she said carefully, I need to know something. Is there any period in your recorded history when Earth was not experiencing armed conflict somewhere? The humans looked at each other, then at their tablets, then at each other again. Define recorded history, Estella finally said. The sound Fexlerantix made could only be described as a scream filtered through a species not built for screaming. Elise opened the archaeological database, and somehow the mood worsened. Even before we developed writing systems, she began in the tone of someone delivering terrible news in a classroom, we had organized warfare. Skilvrix's scales shifted into the muted tone his species reserved for mourning. How can you know about conflicts before written records? Mass graves, Randall replied brightly. Fortifications. Weapons caches. Skeletons with embedded spear points. The usual. The usual? Kintheravel echoed faintly. Humans built defensive walls before they invented agriculture, Wilson added, displaying images of ancient earthworks and stone barriers. In some regions, they fortified areas before they even had permanent settlements. Kintheravel's wings sagged. Your species prioritized military structures over housing. When you say it like that, it sounds backwards, Ballard admitted. But in our defense, the other humans were aggressive. You were fighting each other before you had civilizations, Fexlerantix said flatly. We had to practice on someone, Estella replied. The alien produced a grinding noise. Please tell me there was a stage in your evolution when violence was not your primary cultural activity. Want to see the cave paintings? Rowena asked, bringing ancient artwork onto the display. The images filled the screen, humans hunting massive animals, humans fighting other humans, humans celebrating victory. Spears, clubs, and coordinated formations appeared again and again. The tactics looked disturbingly advanced for so-called primitive societies. Your earliest art records warfare, Kintheravel said quietly. Not all of it, Wilson protested. Some are handprints and abstract patterns. The images that are not handprints depict combat or coordinated hunts, she replied. Like I said, not all of it. Skylar shifted tactics and opened biological data, his scientific instincts searching for rational explanations. Your shoulder joint is unusual for a biped, he said. This range of rotation and muscle attachment is optimized for throwing objects with force and precision. Rocks, Ballard finished. We evolved to throw rocks. And spears. And basically anything we can lift. Evolution favored ranged combat capability, Skylar said slowly. Among other things, Wilson added. We're also persistence hunters. We can track prey for days until it collapses from exhaustion. Fexlerantix looked up from his own analysis, his expression tightening. Your cardiovascular system and temperature regulation allow you to pursue targets across extreme distances in hostile conditions while remaining combat capable. That's a complicated way of saying we can chase something until it dies from being too tired to run, Elise said. But yes. And your neural architecture, Fexlerantix continued, his hands trembling slightly as he scrolled through scans. The areas dedicated to threat assessment, tactical planning, and coordinated group behavior are highly developed. We're social predators, Randall explained, as if that helped. It works better when you can plan strategy with your hunting partners. Kintharavel had stopped using her datapad entirely. She simply stared at the humans with something close to anthropological horror. You're telling me human brain development is optimized for organized violence? Not just violence, Wilson objected quickly. We use the same neural systems for art, music, sports, and competitive games. How does that improve the situation? It means we're adaptable. Skill Vorixer brought up genetic data, his scales rippling uneasily. There are signs of competitive exclusion involving other hominid species in your evolutionary past. What happened to them? The humans exchanged glances. They're not here anymore, Estella said carefully. Did you? We don't really discuss that in detail. The implication lingered in the air like a toxin. Fexlerantix translator emitted a faint mechanical whine. Let me confirm, he said slowly. Humanity did not only fight other humans. You competed with other human-like species until only your subspecies remained. Subspecies is a strong term, Ballard said. And there may have been interbreeding. It wasn't necessarily all violence. The fossil record is incomplete, Wilson added defensively. We're working with limited evidence. There could have been peaceful coexistence. But you don't believe that, Kintharavel said. History suggests we're not particularly skilled at coexistence, Randall admitted. Rowena opened humanity's mythological archives. It did not help. Every culture's foundational stories involved conflict. Gods battling gods. Heroes slaying monsters. Kingdoms conquering kingdoms. Warriors earning honor through violence. Every culture? Skylar asked weakly. Every one, Rowena replied. Different settings, same themes. The Iliad centers on a decade-long war. The Mahabharata describes a battle so vast it dwarfs modern wars. Norse mythology ends with everyone killing each other at the end of the world. Your religions predict apocalyptic warfare, Fexlerantix said, sounding like someone reconsidering his entire career path. Multiple religions, Fexlerantix repeated faintly. Actually, Elise added, it's a common theme. We tend to mythologize our own extinction through massive final battles. When you phrase it that way, it sounds deeply depressing. Kintharavel began humming, a low vibration that signaled severe stress in her species. Surely your children aren't exposed to this cultural fixation on violence. Kids play war games before they can read, Ballard said. Tag, capture the flag, imaginary sword fights with sticks. It's pretty universal. And your entertainment, she pressed. Oh, that's worse, Wilson admitted. Entire industries are built around simulated combat, films, books, video games, competitive sports. Across almost every medium, violence is the most popular category. Sky Vorix buried his face in his hands. You turned combat into recreation. It makes us better at real combat, Randall offered. That does not improve the situation. Estella displayed modern cultural data, action movies, military games, mixed martial arts, historical war documentaries. We also produce romance, comedy, and drama, she said. We're not entirely obsessed. What percentage of your entertainment involves conflict? Fexlerantix asked, already bracing himself. Probably the majority, Rowena admitted. Conflict drives narrative tension. It makes stories compelling. You have turned violence into storytelling structure, Kintharavel said hollowly. Well, yes, Rowena replied. Have you ever heard a story where nothing goes wrong and everyone cooperates? It's not very engaging. The alien stared at her, her compound eyes reflecting bottomless despair. Your species finds peace uninteresting. Not uninteresting, a Ballard corrected. Just less dramatic. Skill Verixner stood abruptly, his scales flashing warning colors. I must understand something fundamental. Given everything we have reviewed today, how has your species survived long enough to achieve space travel? The humans exchanged thoughtful looks. Spite, Wilson said. Stubborn persistence, Elise added. We're exceptionally good at refusing to die, Randall said, almost proudly. Fexlerantix studied them with the expression of someone who had reached the edge of comprehension. Your survival strategy is simply continuing to exist despite overwhelming evidence that you should not. More or less, a Ballard confirmed. Kintharavel's humming shifted into a steady, resigned tone. I need to understand how conflict accelerated your technological development. This contradicts every principle of rational resource allocation. War is a powerful motivator, Estella said. Medical breakthroughs, Randall began. Blood transfusions, antibiotics, advanced surgical techniques, many were developed or refined during wartime. You improved medicine by generating casualties, Fexlerantix said quietly. When lives must be saved faster, Wilson replied, innovation happens faster. A Ballard brought up historical data. Radar, jet engines, rocket propulsion, nuclear energy, satellite communication, even the internet. All began as military projects. Your global information network originated as a weapons system? Kintharavel asked, her wings completely still. It started as a communication system designed to survive nuclear attacks, Elise confirmed. Now we use it to share pictures of animals doing ridiculous things. Skill Verikna reviewed another file. You reached space because of weapons research. Intercontinental missiles had to travel extremely high, Rowena explained. Eventually, someone realized that if you go high enough and fast enough, you don't come back down. Your space program evolved from artillery. When you remove the inspirational speeches, yes, a Ballard admitted. Fexlerantix pulled up comparative data. Your rate of technological advancement increases during periods of conflict. That should not be possible. Nothing accelerates problem-solving like someone actively trying to eliminate you, a Ballard said. It's terrible, but effective. Skill scale shifted rapidly, hovering between insight and collapse. Human aggression appears to be directed primarily inward. You fight yourselves more often than external threats. The humans nodded. Which suggests, the alien continued slowly, that you may be less dangerous to others than your history implies. That's one interpretation, Wilson said carefully. And the alternative? That we've spent thousands of years practicing warfare on each other, Randall replied, and have become extremely good at it. The alien produced a sound like a failing engine. Randall opened recent historical records. Interestingly, the current era is one of the most stable periods in human history. Why? Fexlerantix demanded. Nuclear weapons made total war too costly, Elise explained. When everyone has the power to destroy everyone else, diplomacy suddenly becomes the better option. You achieved peace through the shared threat of annihilation, Fexlerantix said slowly. We're oddly proud of that, Wilson replied. Kintharavel resumed her low humming. Your species frightens me, she admitted. But I'm beginning to understand the pattern. That may be the kindest summary of humanity I've ever heard, a Ballard said. It was not a compliment. Rowena checked her tablet. So, what's the decision? Are we approved? The three aliens exchanged a look that carried an entire silent discussion. Skill spoke first. You are dangerous. Fair, Wilson said. Unpredictable. Also fair. Your civilization is built on organized violence. When you put it that way, we sound terrible, Estella admitted. But, Fexlerantics continued carefully, you have also shown strong capacity for cooperation and loyalty to allies. We haven't attacked a single alien, Randall pointed out. You have only known about aliens for a short time. Still technically accurate, Ballard said. Kintharavel pulled up the final authorization forms, her wings trembling. I am approving your application, she said, with more safety protocols than any species in galactic history. We'll take it, Ballard replied. Your sector will be classified as restricted territory, Skill added. That seems reasonable. And your case file will be mandatory reading for all xenodiplomacy students. Fexlerantics typed rapidly. I am creating a new classification category. What are you calling it? Wilson asked. Aggressively cooperative. Elise nodded. That's surprisingly accurate. The final authorization cleared. Kintharavel transmitted the approval and immediately scheduled personal recovery time. Welcome to the galactic community, she said wearily. Please try not to damage anything essential. No promises, Rowena replied brightly. Skill Vorixner was already edging toward the exit. I need to file an alarming number of hazard reports. Quick question, Ballard called after them. Do any other species here have significant conflict histories? All three aliens froze. Why do you ask? Fexlerantics said carefully. Professional curiosity. There are a few species with martial traditions, Skill admitted. How many wars have they fought? Kintharavel's wings fluttered nervously. The Kryaks have engaged in approximately 30 major conflicts over the past 5,000 years. The humans looked at each other. 30. Wilson repeated. In 5,000 years. That's remarkably peaceful, Estella said slowly. It is the second highest conflict count in the entire galactic community, Skill said defensively. Randall glanced at his tablet, hovering over humanity's complete database. Should we tell them our real total? No, all three aliens said in perfect unison. Probably wise, Ballard agreed. When do we begin attending community events? After mandatory cultural sensitivity training, I assume. Extensive training, Fexlerantics said quickly. Ongoing. Indefinite. Looking forward to it. The aliens watched the humans leave with the expressions of survivors who had just endured something historic and deeply unsettling. Kintharavel opened humanity's file once more, staring at the unfinished war count that had already crashed multiple databases. They didn't even finish the list, she said quietly. I know, Skill replied. And we approved them anyway. I know. A notification appeared on her screen. From Wilson. Subject, complete war database for your records. She stared at the file size. Then she deleted it without opening it. Wise decision, Skilixner said. I'm going home, she announced. And I am requesting a transfer. May I join you? Fexlerantics asked. Absolutely. Behind them, a display screen flickered with a single line from humanity's cultural archive. We came, we saw, we argued about it for 6 centuries, and then conquered it anyway. The office lights dimmed as the last alien hurried out. Somewhere on Earth, Ballard was already drafting humanity's first proposal for the Galactic Defense Committee. And 3 bureaucrats who had never met him felt a sudden, unexplained sense of dread. This was only one story. Subscribe now, because what happens next is even bigger.